Hello all, and thanks for joining us all today to talk about performance management and what we at Piro can do for you to help you. My name is Paula, and I am the Technical Development Manager here at Piro. And I just want to say that I am very excited that you have joined us today, and this is truly one of the first steps that you can take towards a more invested culture and more meaningful performance management. I would like to also invite you to post your questions or comments throughout the presentation. We will go all through them at the end of the presentation. Before we really dive in, I just want to shortly tell you about us, about Piro, to those who are joining us for the first time. The short version, we are a positive feedback technology company whose main purpose is to make employee recognition more rewarding and more meaningful. With a tool like Peero, you give your company the chance to send regular positive feedback to one another, to your peers, thus bringing your teams, even while working remotely, together. Regular feedback helps you to cultivate a more transparent culture in your everyday work environment. And in return, you and your management receive invaluable data that can help you to monitor the mood of the company, detect hidden talents, and influence overall decision-making. Piro app, over a remarkably short time, has really grown. From Piro, which reinforces company values, it has transformed into 3 different Piro modules. Feedback, to teach the company feedback, to say thanks to each other. Culture, the original Piro, to teach company values through positive feedback. And the main reason we are here today, performance, to stay focused and evolve the company level goals and individual goals throughout positive reinforcement. Each of us here today have their own reason why are we thinking about changes in the current performance management in our companies. Most likely, the sum total is that the current approach we use could be better, could be more agile, more meaningful, or that it's not applicable in the given circumstances. And we are not the only ones. This is a hot topic right now, and these changes are being driven by business needs and are not imposed by HR. Performance management is the continuous process of improving performance by setting individual, team, and company goals, which are aligned to the strategic goals of the company. A noble and absolutely necessary process if the company wishes to get ahead or at least be in sync with the times. But what we see today is that the time is going further while the approaches are staying the same. Here is just an example of a couple of traditional performance management and appraisal methods. FYI, these were found in the first pages when I typed in Google search performance management methods, which, let's face it, is most likely the first thing anyone does when trying to choose a performance management method in a company. While when implemented, organized, and monitored correctly, they will bring results. Each of them also comes with a common set of challenges. Each of them have clear-cut rules, tasks, and processes that one must do and carry them out. But even with the most dedicated HR representative or middle managers, they tend to fall short or not deliver the expected results. Management by objectives is arguably the most popular approach, as it is transparent both with the management and the employee in the question. But it can raise the question of the objectivity of the review, mostly because the feedback usually goes only one way, that is down in the hierarchy, and it usually comes only from one person, the boss. Even more so, it can be really stressful for the employee who approaches the end of the year review process, knowing full well that they haven't reached the expected goals, especially because these goals have become irrelevant in the set period of time, which usually is a year or a quarter. Another approach that has become increasingly popular is the 360-degree feedback, where the employee's performance is evaluated not only by their boss, but also by their peers and clients. It somewhat solves the question of the objectivity and the one-way review. But in the meantime, it requires a lot more manpower, hours, and paperwork. And it can be bothersome to the company, as time and again, HR asks the employees on how well their colleagues are performing. Behavioral checklists, again, are based on the opinions of one or handful people. There is no deeper analysis, and the employees don't get the chance to be more involved in the process. The other option, which is only based on the employee's opinion, self-evaluation, once again, is subjective. The employee sometimes might struggle with the task and mostly does not get a discussion of the individual results. In reality, we mostly see some sort of combination with the elements from these and other approaches. Companies take the best or the most appropriate parts and merge them into one big process that fits their circumstances. However, by combining them, we also combine their cons, elements in which these methods fall short. The process becomes heavier, involves more people and more man-hours, ultimately resulting in the same thing. All in all, traditional approaches in performance management might restrict creativity, generate mountains of paperwork, and raise the question of the objectivity of the process itself. Annual reviews are often described as last century practice and are being blamed for lack of teamwork and innovation. More often, we hear employers acknowledging that both supervisors and the subordinates despise the appraisal process. So what can be done? Instead of keeping up with all the rules and instructions of the existing processes, we can reimagine them. Make them easier, more engaging, generally more understandable to the employees and their managers, and deliver meaningful results. And that is exactly what Piro Performance has done. Let's take a closer look at what a traditional approach in performance management might look like. Now, this is a management method where the performance appraisals are only a part of the whole process. The whole cycle usually begins with top management reviewing and setting long-term goals for the whole company. This is further communicated down to middle managers who then decide on their team and employee individual objectives, which would support the success of company goals. After setting the goals, the timeline, the objectives, which would support the objectives, the actual work begins, which is usually monitored at some extent. Now, in a dynamic workplace, the goal and hence the objectives can change quite often, right? This means that during the monitoring process, there is the constant need for reassessing them, involving the employees, the managers, and sometimes even the top management. Then, after the set period of time, comes the review process, collecting the results, discussing the results, awarding the top performers, and dealing with those who might have struggled. But best case scenario, we get results on which we can base our next steps and decisions. But the reality might differ again. The process involves a lot of moving parts, and some things can go sideways in every step of the way. Let's drill down and try to reimagine this process that would be more people-centered and not goal-oriented, more engaging for the employees, and something that brings a positive change in your culture. Every cycle begins with reviewing and defining the overall objectives or goals of the company. If the whole process is repeated every year or every quarter, that usually means that the main goals mostly remain the same, because for realistic but also ambitious goals, 12 or 6 months is actually a short period. This part also is the setup for the next step, setting team and individual objectives, which would support the main goals. How does the top management communicate these goals to the employees, even at the lowest level in the hierarchy? Is it a company-wide meeting, an email? Does the manager tell them about it, the goals? Announcing the goals in a company-wide meeting is a no-go. Some will listen intently, some won't, but after a while, we will most likely forget about them in the everyday hustle. An email is even more ineffective, as some will only skip through it, or as some will only skip through it, and some won't even open it. Direct managers, however, might miscommunicate them. Something might get lost in the translation if we just pass this along as a message. Now, some of you might be thinking and ask, does it really matter that all the employees know the global goals? Yes, it does. Because then what's the point? Doing the job for the sake of just doing it? By not communicating these goals, we risk an important part of our company culture's common target that we as a team aim for. Let's reimagine the goal setting. The basis remains the same. Set up 3, 4, 5 company goals for the long term, be it a year or even 2. But don't change them more often than that. Managers and employees will struggle to keep up. It is imperative that the managers and employees know and fully understand these goals and see how their department fit into them, what they bring to the table to reach them. Put the company business targets front center. That's what we do in Piro. Your employees send positive feedback about a job well done for one of the company goals that the task has helped to achieve. Even more so, we also select the quality that our peer has demonstrated, gold as exceptional, out-of-the-box performance, silver as good performance, and bronze as performing with the expected quality. If you have strong and alive company values, generally known and accepted by the community, you can add those too. This way, you can see which company values support each business target. This brings us to team and employee objectives. Remember what I said about manager role in this? Let me just emphasize this again. Managers absolutely need to understand the company goals and what is their function to reach them. A good way to carry this out would be, for example, a workshop involving the whole management team. Bring them all together, ask what their department goals are, and see which company goals they support. If the managers know their role in the big picture, they will have no problem in communicating them to their team. And from that, each person's responsibilities and objectives can be set. Now let's think of an example. The manager and the employee would brainstorm and set realistic and measurable goals. A salesperson in company X would normally have several goals, but the main one would probably be along the lines, make sales in the amount of 50,000 euros in a year. Or for a technical development manager like me, make 10 necessary new features in the app in a year. Let's reimagine this thought process. When we set personal objectives, do the employees now know how they are tied to the main company goals? Probably not. They know their task and they do everything in their power to reach it because it's their job. But with thinking like this, the employee becomes isolated in their task from the big picture. They don't see themselves as a part on the way to reach the company goals. And this is where we break down the cycle in iterations, not in quarters, but even months or weeks. Setting small, short period objectives will help the employee stay on track and constantly think how the small tasks sum up into a company goal. While the main objective might not change, the ways how to do it could, and they usually do. This gives more flexibility both to the manager and the employee. You don't have to stick to the plan rather than react and adapt to the situation. Just like in ice hockey, if the long term is the whole 60 minutes of the game, we aim to win each 5 minutes to eventually win the game itself. If you make sure that each iteration objectives are reached, the main goal will be reached too. Now imagine the salesperson makes a sale and the boss tells them, "Good job," or they don't say anything at all. And the salesperson is fine with that because they have done what was expected of them. Let's turn this around. Imagine they receive a notification, a feedback from their boss or their colleague, or even the CEO with the text, "Great job on landing the sale. This brings us one step closer to the financial year goal." What happens in this case, the person immediately sees which company goal they have supported, which value they have demonstrated while doing it, how their performance was evaluated, and which colleague, even a remote one, has noticed their achievement. The employee feels recognized and good, which motivates them to keep going forward, to chase this feeling, so to say. They see how and to whom they have helped. And then they do the same thing to their other colleagues, recognizing others' work for the menial tasks like preparing an invoice for a client, at the same time realizing that this process is necessary to reach a certain company goal. Now, the employee has a different perspective. Every task has a meaning. Every colleague is part of the team, thus creating transparency of the whole ecosystem. This means that each task, every day, every week, is a small objective. Now, how can my manager know that I have done what is expected of me, or the quality of my performance has been good? By monitoring it. Normally, it all comes down to numbers. We would check in with the progress and see if it is as expected, forecast if we will reach the expected objective in the set time, maybe adapt to the situation. This works fine if someone does it regularly, but managers are people too. They can be overworked and miss the quarterly check-ins, or they might skip them altogether if the numbers look good, and thus missing some alarming things. At what cost do the numbers look good? Maybe the salesperson is overworking themselves to reach the objective, or they are being really unpleasant and stressful to work with in order to reach it, thus kind of creating a hostile work environment for other peers. This can turn ugly really quickly. Worst case scenario, someone quits, essentially lowering the possibility of reaching company goals because we have lost a team player. And this is the problem with irregular numbers-based check-ins. Keeping in mind that the personal objectives should be divided in small tasks for a short period of time, the monitoring process should also adhere to this time period. Incorporate regular informal check-ins between managers and their employees, where they reflect on the past week or two, where they look at what kind of feedback they have received, what quality, from which teams and colleagues, or even external contacts. Yes, Peero also offers to request feedback from people outside your company. A good example would be to do a regular customer satisfaction survey by setting parallel objective, for example, the sales team. After every sale, every closed deal, they would send a request to their client asking to specifically rate their performance with previously mentioned gold, silver, and bronze qualities, and also a place to leave a comment. Bring the numbers to the one-on-ones too, if you feel like it, but just occasionally, not to pressure the employee too much. The data from received feedback will help you monitor whether the person is being recognized for their work and consequently remaining focused on the targets that they have set. Now, the coin's other side is how the employee is feeling themselves. As managers and employers, you have to make sure that the employee is in the best environment they can be, so they have a stable grounding for excellent performance. If the employee is having problems, that automatically detracts from their task and decrease the quality of their performance. With Piro, it's quite simple. Every peer who uses the app has the chance to fill in a weekly self-review where they can leave a comment and tick which elements they have valued positively this week. This is a great indicator for the manager. It should be the start of every check-in. Now, if the employee is struggling with the focus on their main business goals, the reason might be found in the self-review. Maybe their team is overworking them. Maybe their tasks are unclear. And the manager gets this information regularly and instantly, giving them the chance to act on it and resolve problems as they arise. Monitoring these two sides will help you to move forward and keep your employee on track with their tasks, all the while involving them in the process. Then comes the evaluation process. Normally, this happens at least once a year, where the manager meets up with the employee and sometimes together with the HR representative. They sit down, look at some numbers, compare them to the set standards, and decide whether the performance has been adequate. This actually requires quite a lot of preparation and invested time from both sides. And the final evaluation is made by the manager and maybe the HR representative overlooking the process. That doesn't sound entirely objective, though. What may help is some anonymous questionnaires from peers, some references from the clients or partners. Again, this takes a lot of preparation. If we reimagine this step in the context of Piro, all the information is already there. You have your sales numbers, but the holistic evaluation is in the portal. And the best part, because of the regular check-ins covered in the monitoring, you don't have the need to prepare or try to remember what happened 3 or 6 months ago. With this continuous process, you are in the loop all the time and know full well what information are you looking at. You can see the changes over time, whether the focus of the main business goals for the employee have remained the same, increased or decreased. You can also see if your attempts to improve the work environment have consequently led to the increase of your employee mood. The evaluation process then helps you to answer more than has my employee reached their expected goals, but also how well they have performed while doing that and how they felt throughout the process, which are equally important questions. And all of this is based on the information, the feedback provided from your peers. And finally, we have the rewarding of the employees. Being overly general, the principles are usually very simple. Reached your objectives, you get a bonus. Didn't reach them, you don't get a bonus. But what if the objectives weren't reached because of the hostile work environment I mentioned previously, and it wasn't tracked? Then it's not really the fault of the employee, right? What you can do with Piro performance is set up a different bonusing system. Award bonuses based on the numbers if you want, but also consider a separate bonus for the involvement in the feedback sharing process, which is the basis of performance evaluation. Each employee gets a system-defined tasks they have to complete and collect points for them to reach a certain level throughout the month. The tasks consider both sending and receiving feedback, sending longer comments, thus meaningful feedback instead of a smiley face or just thanks, filling out the self-review on the regular basis. These tasks will help your team to learn the platform itself and also to learn sending meaningful, regular feedback. Reaching the top level means that the employee has used Piro in a meaningful way, helping you and your peers to evaluate and increase your performance as well as their own. Top level gets the top bonus, while lower levels get a symbolic payout. This way, everyone gets a fair chance at the bonus, no matter what position they have in the company. And you can decide how often to pay out this bonus, once a year, once a quarter, once every month. This can be a great incentive for the employees to participate. This brings us to the Reimagine performance evaluation. With Piro performance, we can ensure that the process is more engaging, involving everyone in the company, more agile, essentially making it a continuous performance management, giving more control and information to the manager so they can seamlessly monitor the business process. It's more people-oriented, by bringing transparency and giving a bigger meaning to your peers' role in the company. And finally, it gives voice to your employees. Their opinion matters every step of the way. Now, that's the end of my presentation. I hope you have been active in the Q&A part. So let me just open it up. I can see that we have, yes. So there's an anonymous question. How do I make my managers better engaged through this? So if we talk about continuous performance management as it is, this is what I said before. It's not necessarily to Piro, but informal regular check-ins with your employees. It's the emphasis being on informal. It means that they don't have to prepare. They just come in and check the temperature, so to say. So it's not really a burden to them. They talk to their employees, hopefully, every day, and this really wouldn't add to their workload. So this is one of the ways to do it. Again, the managers also participate in Piro context in the feedback giving and sharing. This is actually one of the tasks I just talked about in this level system, that the employee has received recognition from their boss. And the same goes for the manager. They also have someone at the top, and they should also receive recognition from their boss and also share it to them. So this is one of the ways. Yeah, and then we have a question, is there a place for development items in Piro? No, Piro essentially becomes lighter to use, not only for the HR, but also for the employee itself, you know, because bringing this development items into a system basically means we transfer the paperwork to a system and nothing really changes. Someone still has to fill them out. Someone still has to review them. And it's usually qualitative information, not so much as quantitative. So it's no easy way to like create a quick report on something like that. And this is what we try to detract from, this paperwork, this workload that people have to do additionally to their tasks they already have. And yeah, so we kind of give all our baskets, put in the managers, all our eggs, put them in managers' baskets, you know, because they are the closest ones to the employees. They actually know what they are doing, what are their objectives. And this way they can easily control the process. Like, for example, for me, this week, one of the objectives was to prepare for this webinar. And my boss was constantly checking in, like asking how you're doing, are you prepared, do you think you'll do well, and something like that. And we will revise this next week when we check in again. So that's it. My task is done, and I am working towards a bigger goal. That is to increase brand recognition, for example. So this is the way of the thinking. We don't have to jot everything down. We don't have to create these papers or reports just to know that the employee is doing well. So yeah, are there any more questions? If not, then I sincerely hope that you have learned something valuable today. And if you have any interest or any more questions, or if you just like to discuss the topic, please feel free to contact us, and we will be more than happy to get in touch and help you to bring a positive change in your company culture. Thank you.